Hey guys, it's Cam here. Welcome back to the build room, and this week is a big one because the R34 is finally in the garage, and we're going to be taking on one of the common problems, and that is a busted heater core. So stick around and check it out. All right, so this is what we're working on today. It is my 1998 R34 Nissan Skyline. Before you get too excited, this is a 25 GT. That means it is a naturally aspirated version, and this one is also an auto, so the worst of all worlds. I've had this car for about 6 months, and I bought it because the prices of these were going gangbusters, and I wanted to get a two-door while I still could, and I also wanted something that we can really go to town on and modify without feeling bad about myself chopping up a perfectly good GTT. So yeah, first time in the garage for this one, and the first thing I'm noticing is that it is a lot bigger than the Celica's, and I hadn't really thought about that when I thought about working on this. So I think the first things we need to do is to get this thing jacked up so we've got it at a height where it's reasonable to work on, and I do want to have a look underneath it. And also we're going to have to clear out the garage a bit and make some room, because in today's episode we're going to be working on that side of the car. So yeah, I think what I'll do is pull the car out of the garage, we'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll get this up on jack stands. Love the reversing beep. All right, I think that's enough room. And there we go, Overlander spec. All right, so with that up in the air, the first thing I need to do is get some parts. And when I first bought this, which is about 6 months ago now, I bought a heap of parts and I stored them all in the boot, but I actually have no idea what I did buy. And this thing needs new gas struts. Maybe I've got them in the back, I don't know. But yeah, as I said, needs new struts. But there's a bunch of stuff in here, including a subwoofer, but let's pull this all out and see what's in there. All right, so we have 2 stock valve covers. I think, come to think of it, I think I bought one, and then when I went to buy a bracket to mount it to, I could only get a cover and bracket together. So I have 2 covers, and hopefully somewhere in here there is a bracket. I've got a factory NA airbox, airflow meter, and snorkel. We've got a new weather strip for the boot because this boot leaks currently, which is no good. So yeah, new seal there. Some big box from Spares Box. Maybe this is my struts, I don't know. We'll open that in a second. Got a K&N filter kit. I'm assuming that means I ordered a K&N filter in here somewhere. We've got the bracket for the engine cover. This is a cat converter from memory. Yep, that's a stock R34 cat. Mine rattles to all hell, and I think it's because either someone has decatted it when they put the big exhaust on this, or some other reason. So yeah, this is a pretty decent one. I'll probably throw it on while I've got the car in the air. We've got some .3 brake fluid. I would imagine that's actually being used as power steering fluid. I didn't put that in here because the rack on this does have a leak. So yeah, I need to get a seal kit and fix that. And last but not least, one assorted box, I think, from Kudos Motorsport. No idea what's in here. Let's take it to the front of the car and have a look, because there's another box in the back of the workshop that I forgot about, which we should also look at too. Ah, man, that really does need struts. All right, so we'll take the big box first. Sweet, struts. All right, that's good to have. And these are a VE Commodore strut. I would imagine I probably looked online to see what would fit the R34, and these were probably listed. I'll give you the part numbers once I actually fit these and we can 100% confirm that not only do they fit, but they're the right pressure to make that work properly. All right, and then in the kudos box, there's a lot of bubble wrap. Oh, we got heaps here. Okay, so yeah, we just got some stickers and air fresheners from the guys at Kudos. We have some radiator hoses. I'll show you under the bonnet in a second. Radiator hoses are important. You'll see why. Got a new radiator cap, a new thermostat, Nissan oil filter. Yep, oil filter. Strainer, it's probably a fuel filter. Yeah, that's the EFI fuel filter in the bay. A water tube. Okay, that'll be important in a second. Another water tube, need 2 of them. A couple of rubber mounting pads for the top brackets for the radiator. We've got a Nissan air filter. I'd say that's actually the intake air filter. And then we've also got a pitwork filter here, 2 of these. I'd say this is the cabin filter, the pollen filter in the car. And then we've got 6 new spark plugs. Yep. And then finally, we have a new heater core. All right, and this is a genuine Nissan heater core, and they're a pretty simple thing. They're just a tiny aluminium radiator with a bit of foam around them so they seal up nicely in the airbox. And then there's 2 ports on the side, and those ports, so the water tube has an O-ring on the back of it and some screw holes, and it basically bolts into that. I think it would bolt in that way, probably. And that punches through into the engine bay so you can attach your heater hoses onto it. So yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff here that is probably gonna wait until the next episode, because today we're just gonna focus on fixing the heater core. Oh, and I almost forgot, we've also got this thing, and that is a brand new OEM radiator shroud, because this thing does not have one. So this car, I think, had a small hit. Actually, I don't know if it was small or large, but it has had a repair. You can tell it's got one xenon headlight and one non. The bonnet and this fender have been painted really rather poorly. There's some clear evidence under the bonnet here that someone's done some sanding and some priming and things like that. So I would imagine that the fan shroud was probably broken in that accident and piffed, or whoever was working on the car just couldn't be bothered putting it back in. But yeah, the bay is pretty stock. There's a few things that have been changed. There is some wiring run for the stereo. You saw the sub in the boot. It has a pod filter. Look, I don't hate the pod filter, but I don't love it either. And that is certainly one of the things that the WA police look for. They're supposed to be permitted over here. It has some red silicone hoses, the top and bottom radiator hose. I absolutely despise them. They've got to go. And in addition to missing that shroud, it's also missing the engine cover. So, you know, it's not far off. It just needs a few little bits and pieces added. And obviously I have had the foresight to order those already. So in the next episode, when we do the tune-up, we'll throw all those things on. The thing that we're looking at today is to do with the heater core. And if we have a look back here, we have 2 hoses here. See that black one there and the black one below it, and they've been joined with this blue silicone hose. Now the 2 black hoses hook straight into the heater core, and those are those 2 pipes down there. And you can see this one has already cracked and is starting to fall apart, and the bottom one doesn't look any better. That's a common problem for all R34s, which is why we're going through it, but they get too many heat cycles in them. They get brittle, and then this is what happens. And so the blue silicone hose is there to join those 2 black pipes and make sure that the water still goes on the standard path through the motor, but it's obviously bypassing the busted up, broken heater core. The other issue that you can get on the heaters is that the core gets blocked up or gets a leak, and then you end up with coolant all over the passenger side footwell, and that is also no bueno. So there's a couple of good things about doing this now. Firstly, my heater core is already empty, so I don't have to worry about getting water in the car and things like that, or disconnecting that and dropping the coolant. The other thing is that in order to do this, you also have to remove the AC. Well, not having to remove all of the AC, just the evaporator that's under the dash. And that means that you're gonna need to have the system discharged or degassed or whatever you wanna call it. I've actually already had this done. It cost me $50 to have it discharged. So don't be a tight ass and vent it to the atmosphere. Have it done in the environmentally friendly way so you're not part of the problem. So yeah, there's not that much of a need for me to be in the bay today. Really, I'm just gonna show you from inside the cabin how we go about removing everything we need to get access to that space, and then how we get the new heater core in. So let's jump into the interior. Basically, the heater core sits behind the glove box and also behind a little bit of the transmission tunnel. It used to be that people thought you needed to remove the entire dash to get to the heater core, which is why a lot of people just bypassed it. But from what I understand, you can get to it through here. But yeah, full disclosure, this would be the first time that I've ever tried to replace a heater core on an R34. So we're gonna be learning together today. Hopefully it all goes well, and then you guys will have a reference, because I haven't found anything else on YouTube that covers off how to do this. It's really just information that I've managed to grab from forum posts and things like that and piece together. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a nice reference when we're done here. For now, let's figure out how to get to this heater core. All right, so we're gonna start off by getting this glove box out of the way. Underneath, there are some clips. These clips are actually 2 pins, and you just get a long nose set of pliers and pull them out from each side. That'll mean the glove box is no longer hinged at the bottom, so you can open it up and it will drop out, but it will have this mechanism that is, I think, a helper to help itself close. And you just need to use, again, a set of pliers to close that clip down, and it'll pop out as well. Now we need to get this back panel here out. And when I say back panel, it's actually all one piece. So all of this section here, all the way up the side, and this area here, all one piece. So there's a bunch of screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. And there's also one that gets hidden underneath this plate here. So we're gonna start by taking the kick panel out. And to do that, the easiest way to go is just lift up the sill cover. It just snaps in, and will snap up slightly. That you don't need to take it the whole way out, just that'll be enough. Pull this seal out. Again, not looking to take it all the way, just a little bit. And then see at the back there, there is normally a bolt on this back section of the firewall. Mine is obviously been removed at some point. So yeah, you should take that off, and then this cover should just snap out, and I'm gonna need 2 hands for that. Hang on. Oh. All right, so you can see the snapping clips. There's one here and one here. And behind it is your ECU. We're not super interested in that though. All we need is this screw here. So we'll take that one out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the catch comes with that one as well. And then this should be the last one. All right. Okay, and that should just slide out. Oh yeah, and there is a light there for the glove box. So we'll put this to the side. All right, then looking here, I'm not sure what we're looking at. I think that's the fan blower. This, because it's got a removable cover, is most likely the pollen filter. That would make this the aircon unit, and then the heater core is probably located in there, I think. I don't know, let's start pulling stuff out of here and we'll find out pretty quick. Clip off. There we go. Oh, okay, so there's no cabin filters in there. There should be cabin filters in there, but hey, such is life. But if we have a look inside here, you can see that is the AC evaporator in there. So we're basically going to have to get this whole box out here, and I'm going to have a look at it because I'm sure there's a lot of screws there and probably some wiring looms and bits and bobs. And we're also going to have to take out the 2 pipes that connect into this from inside the bay. All right, so we're going to start with the lines in the bay, because if we detach everything that's in the car and it wants to drop down, it's going to put all that weight onto the fittings here. So yeah, we'll take these out first. Like I said, this has been discharged. I fully expect there to be a little bit of pressure release when I take these out, but it's not anything to worry about. So 2 bolts there, I think they're 10 mil, maybe 12. We'll get those out and we can see what the plate looks like below it. All right, with the top one out, you can see that the bottom bolt is actually a lot smaller. I think that's a 10. All right, and that's the second line free. All right, and with those gone, you can see the metal housing here. That will be a block directly into the back of the evaporator, and just the rubber seal between the firewall and the aluminium. So we should be good to pull this out. All right, and just one thing on the ends of the hose, you can see that there's some O-rings there. They dry out over time and they seal up okay until you remove them like we have now, and those will probably crack or stand a big chance of not sealing when they go back in. So we will replace those when we go to put the lines back in. All right, so here's where it gets a bit tricky. The only instructions that I found online for these things are to suit the R33, not the R34. And in the R33, I believe the blower unit, the evaporator and the heater core are all separate. So you can pull out the evaporator and get to the heater core while the blower fan's still there. It seems like it's all one piece here. So this bottom section at least is one piece all the way along the bottom, and that holds the fan in the blower motor there, and then the bottom half of the evap. Now, there's two options that I'm going to look at here. One, remove the whole unit, so basically take out blower, evaporator, and all of the plastic casing. Just got to remove a lot of the loom from all of these things, and then take off enough bolts, and there are some right up the top here that will be difficult to get to. Or, potentially what I could do is remove the bottom half only. So there's a bunch of screws that hold this bottom piece in, and if I take all of them out, I may be able to just separate the bottom half. So I think what I'm going to do is try to get the whole unit out in one piece rather than pull it to pieces, because then we might run into issues of needing seals and things like that. So I'll try and pull it out in one piece. If I can't, then I will go to plan B, which is the bottom half. And what I'm going to do is start with the hardest bolt here, and I think that is going to be this one right up the top. Let's see if we can find that. That bolt right there. I'm going to try to get to that one with a ratchet spanner. If I can't get to that, I'm probably not going to be able to unbolt this thing. All right. All right, we'll make some progress here. All right, we're going to try and finish strong with a 10 mil on a knuckle. That's actually not too bad. All right, great success. So I think the tool of choice for that one is just a really small, this is a 3/8 inch 10 mil socket, small knuckle and extension bar lets you get up behind the dash bar and get it out. All right, so there's 4 more bolts I want to take out. One's up here on the heater core housing. And then if we look below it, we've got another one here on the bottom, one right on the back on the firewall, and then another one just behind the ECU. You can see, if I move that loom out of the way, just in the back corner there. Easy enough to get off with a 10 mil. And then we'll see if this thing actually wants to move, or there's more bolts up here that I don't know about and I'm probably not going to be able to get to. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, now it's time to see if we shake this enough, whether it'll come out. Well, that's a lot of movement actually. Oh, hello. Okay, we're gonna get stuck up there. All right, I think we're gonna get hung up on this, so I'm just gonna pull this out of the way and let it drop down on the loom. Okay, don't think there's any more loom that's going to get in the way. I'm tucking that one up there. I'll have to remember that for later. But yeah, let's see if this will come any further. Nope, that's still not dropping out. It's quite tight. I don't want to force it. I don't want to break anything. So I think if I was to pull the ECU off its bracket as well and get that out of the way, I think then you can see here, we're sitting on top of the ECU at the moment. So with that in there, hopefully the whole unit will drop down a little bit further and we'll be able to clear the dash bar up here. Please hold. All right, so the ECU is laying down somewhat flat, but there we go. And so with the unit out of the car, you can see this back blocking plate. This is the area where the hose is connected into in the engine bay. This is the drain, so any water that condenses in the housing here will drain out into here, into the engine bay and onto the ground. And the funny thing is with this, I'll just show you here. If I lift this up, oh, you can see there. So that, someone has taken the two back screws out of this before. So I'm going to go ahead and guess someone has already tried to replace the heater core in this car and either got this far in and given up. I mean, we would never have been able to split this bottom housing off because you can see on the back here, you've got a metal clip that holds the two halves of the clamshell and there as well. So someone probably took out a bunch of screws, still couldn't get it to separate and then gave up without taking out the bolts from the body and getting it out in one piece. So yeah, my recommendation would be definitely take it out in one piece. I'm gonna have to get some screws to put that back together a little bit more solidly. Now the core actually looks really quite clean. I'm not too worried about that. Hopefully it still holds pressure and seals, but the only way to really check that is gonna be to get the whole system put back together and then pressure tested. So let's move back into the car. So inside we can see all the way back to the heater core now. Well, at least you can see the two plastic pipes that protrude into the engine bay that the heater hoses go onto, and then behind that, let me get some more light on that. Behind that you can see each of those hoses attaches with 4 screws. So I'm pretty sure what we can do here is we can unscrew both of those pipes and then we should be able to slide the core towards us out of the housing without needing to remove any of this stuff here, right? We don't want to touch any of that, too hard basket. Let's just see if we can get through on that. All right, so I'm just gonna put a rag underneath the core. I don't think there'll be any water coming out of this. It's been bypassed for a long time, so it should have evaporated out, but you never know. I hope you guys appreciate what I'm having to do to get this shot. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, there we go. Oh. All right, and then we can pull that out. 1 down and 1 to go. Now this one is going to be the same process as the other one. I'm moving the camera out of the way now because it is extremely tight to move in. That is how much space I've got to move down there. So getting rid of the big light and getting rid of the camera is going to make for a lot of room. All right, so the screws are out of this one now. Yeah, twist it around, come straight out. Beautiful. Now with the pipes out of the way, you can see the heater core here in all of its glory. Yeah, it looks like it's probably never been changed. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So firstly, obviously it's difficult to get to this point, or not as difficult as I thought, but not great. But secondly, there is that black plastic tab down the bottom retaining the core into this unit. Now, from what I've heard, that's just there to hold everything in place while they build the car. The bottom line is we have 2 heater core pipes running through the firewall, and that's going to stop any lateral movement in this anyway. So I'm going to first try to lever that plastic out, but I'm pretty sure on this model that it's molded in on both sides, in which case we're going to bust out that Stanley trimmer and we're going to make it happen. So yeah, I will come back in a couple of seconds and hopefully we'll be able to slide this thing out. All right, so I've snapped that black plastic. I just cut one side of it and then peeled it back and it snapped. I've also just trimmed this top bit because there's a little overhang here that was getting caught up on this. So hopefully this will come out now. All right. We have a heater core. This does not look like the face of a happy man, but I assure you I am. Oh, let's get out of here. All right, so here we are. old heater core out and a new heater core to replace it. So, I mean, straight up, you can tell the difference in the color discoloration on the pipes. That is really not great. Obviously, these have cracked and worn down as well. But then also, if you look at the cores themselves, you can see the staining all through here, which is probably from this thing leaking out of one of the seams where they fold the two pieces of aluminium around each other to seal up. So yeah, it's most likely that this was a leaking heater core and that's why it was bypassed. So now we just have to get the new one in. Now the new one, I've obviously just put these pipes on temporarily to show you guys what it looks like, and actually because I need a thumbnail for this episode. But yeah, we'll have to remove these to get it back in. The one thing you want to be careful of when you're doing this is just to make sure you don't manhandle the fins too much, because like any normal radiator, you can damage those pretty significantly. They're not the strongest part on the car. To get this back in, it's pretty much the reverse process of taking it out. Hopefully we don't run into too many gotchas. So let's jump back into the car. All right, so with the core out, first thing we want to do is just make sure we just check in there for any debris and things like that, especially with this thing not having cabin filters. That's really worth checking. And then we can slide the new core in. We've taken off the inlet and outlet pipes, obviously, and we should just be able to slide it back through there. Now the two water outlets go towards the top. Like a glove. Just do one last check to make sure you haven't got anything that's going to obscure those ports or interfere with the seals. Obviously make sure the seals are seated and in position in each of the pipes. And I think I'm going to start with the top one because that seems to be the hardest. So we're just going to push that through into the bay, and then if we twist it around, you can see on the other one two raised sections, and they seat into those rectangular keyways on either side of the port. So we can just twist it up. All right, so you can see we have got the core fully situated. All of the bolts are in and done up. It's looking pretty neat in there. Even without that clasp, that thing is rock solid. It's not gone anywhere. All right, so yeah, really don't think we needed that plastic strap. Not going to miss it. Don't expect any rattles or anything like that. So now is the point where what we should do is we should hook up the radiator hoses and we should fill this up and we should make sure that it doesn't leak. I'm not going to do that because in the next episode I plan on draining all of the coolant out of this thing and refilling it and flushing it out, because the current coolant in the radiator is God knows how old and could have absolutely anything in it. So I don't want to flush all of that garbage coolant through my brand new heater core. So we're going to continue on the road of assembly, and that means we have got to get this big girl tidied up and ready to go back in. All right, so I've put those two screws back into this thing, so it's not going to fall apart anymore. Now the main things we want to make sure we get situated properly are the drain area and obviously where the pipes connect into. We get those two slotted in and then the rest should be gravy. All right, so keep your fingers crossed. Coming in low again. Putting in the blower end first. Oh, I've caught the ECU there, or whatever it is. Maybe it's an airbag controller or something. Get that in first, then we get the other end. Then I think what I'm going to try and locate it on is the stud right up the top here, because I've got to slide over that and then it should hang off it. All right, we're on the stud. I'm just going to check in the bay to make sure that that's all lined up. All right, you can see down there, we've got to come up a little bit more and also head towards the center console, but we're on the right track, I think. All right, that's feeling pretty located. So what I'm going to do is just pop a couple of bolts into it. That's one. Pop this bottom corner one in too. All right, it's already feeling solid. Let's check the bay again, make sure everything's in the right place. All right, so you can see the AC unit has come through in roughly the right spot. This is a foam seal. It just, presses up against the firewall. It's not something that needs to sit over the edges of that steel or anything like that. So it does have an indentation up here where it's previously been squashed on the firewall. So it's just a slightly different position, but I think that's good enough. That seal is obviously going to move around a little bit, so I don't expect it to sit perfectly. So I think we're pretty good there. We've got, I think, about 3 more bolts here, one underneath, a second nut next to the drain port. And then we've got a nut that's got to go right up the top with our little stud friend above the blower unit. All right, it's tight. All right, that's nice and solid. Let's get the looms connected back up. So the large loom connects to the actuator here. And then we've got the cable tidy, which clips in here. And then this big one, which goes to the blower motor. This is where that secondary loom went. We'll just tuck this light out of the way for now so that we can get the 2 ECUs back in place. Tuck the main one in first. And just in case you've confused your nuts and bolts, the silver screw type, go for the ECU. Bit of a harder one to get to this. One there. One there. There's another cable tidy here for this that just pops into that bracket. All right, so with that done, we can get our glove box light out of the area for the cabin filters and we can put the case back on. Obviously on your car, you'd be putting your cabin filters back in first, but I don't have any. And it's probably gonna take me quite a while to source them. If you have a set that are spare, either DM me on Instagram or leave a comment below and we'll work something out. So this one should just slip over the top and then slide down, lock in place. It's there. And then we just need to put the metal clip on the bottom. All right, locked in place. Now we need to get the glove box surround in, and I'll remember to put the light in this time. And for those of you wondering, the light just clips in like that on the back. Pretty easy. Get it into place. One, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 holding the latch in place. With the backing plate in, now we can get the kick panel to cover up the computers. It's a pretty easy one, just make sure it's on the back stud. And then it just clips in with the 2 clips at the front. Ta-da! We'll put our door seal back into place over the top of it, tucking that underneath the seal protector, and then just knock our seal protector down as well. Oh, and I also ended up with an extra nut. Now, I think that's because I found this one under the carpet. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. I don't think I missed any bolts up here. If I did, let me know. But now we can hold that kick panel down properly. And that means it's glove box time. So I'll start by hooking up the retracting unit, whatever you want to call it. That just clips back on, it's a real no-brainer. Line up the unit. And we'll just get it up in place, clipped into this. Bottom's obviously open, but then we've just got our 2 clips. Just gonna slide, lift that back up and slide those in to retain it in place. And if you slide them in with the point down, you'll be able to get them out properly. The reason I had to use needle nose pliers before is the person who put them back in the first time put them in upside down. All right. Working glove box. All right, so that's all back to stock, looking good. We just want to check the bay. We're still all good with that alignment. We've just got to put the hoses back in. Now, I did say when we put this together, the one thing you want to do is change the O-rings on the lines. Looks like that little guy. And then we check our assorted O-rings. Should be able to find one the right size here. Slip that bad boy over. Looks pretty tight. All right, the big jobby, like a glove. Let's get these bolted back in. All right, they're back to looking like they should. I obviously haven't hooked up the new heater core yet. I don't want to run that garbage coolant through that brand new core. So when you do hook them back up, you want to make sure you're throwing a little bit more coolant in and you're appropriately leaving the cap off and running the motor to bleed the engine properly. So yeah, I think we're pretty much done here. So let's just take a quick second to reflect on how we did today. All right, so how did we do? I honestly thought that was going to be an absolute nightmare of a job, especially when I realized that the R33 and the R34 really aren't the same beast. But to be honest, that was pretty cruisy. I reckon if you're doing this at home and you're not filming an episode, I mean, it's nighttime now, it's taken me all day. But I reckon you'd probably get through this in 3, maybe 4 hours if you knew what you're doing. And I'm hoping there's enough detail in this video for you guys not to be worried about not having enough information to get the job done. So yeah, if you like the episode and it's helped you out, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all of the things. It helps the channel out. And make sure you come back next week because we're going to do the full service on this thing and then we're going to put all of those other parts back in place and hopefully this thing looks stock as a rock. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm going to give you a link to our classic 1977 RA28 Celica build here and I'm going to link to my A90 Supra build just down here. Other than that, I just want to say thanks for watching and I'll see you next time on The Build Room. Bye for now.